So hello everybody. We are Ingrid Mula and Lisa Janssens, and we will present our research which is focused on transformative learning for sustainable development in higher education and quality assurance. And this research was undertaken last year during 2021 in the context of a collaboration between different members of the Copernicus Alliance, which is a European higher education for sustainable development network. And more specifically, the members involved were Hasselt University in Belgium and the University of Girona in Spain, where Liz and myself are based, as well as the University of Bern in Switzerland and Kaunas University of Technology in Lithuania. So we will start this presentation by providing a little bit of context of our research and underlying the importance of integrating transformative learning for sustainability in quality assurance frameworks. We will then explain how we selected the different frameworks that we analyzed and how we collected them. We will move to explain in more detail how we conducted the research, therefore the different methods that we used, and how we analyzed the data. And finally, we will show the results obtained and discuss them in light of identifying some future research pathways. Higher education institutions play a critical role in the transformation of a more sustainable world. But although the number of universities adopting higher education for sustainable development declarations and engaging with sustainable development is increasing, until now not many institutions have succeeded in implementing sustainability in a systematic way in all their activities. Different authors identify a diverse range of barriers to the incorporation of sustainability in universities. This could be resistance to change, lack of interdisciplinary culture, lack of institutional sustainability plans, or lack of financial resources, amongst others. And a very strong barrier is the fact that many universities and researchers are reluctant to associate values with science, as they believe that science must remain free and objective. And this misconception tends to affect how universities understand and practice teaching and makes it difficult to mainstream transformative learning for sustainable development, which is, as spelled in the Berlin Declaration, the kind of pedagogy that we need for education for sustainable development. In our research, we argue that most of the barriers that we've just mentioned to integrate sustainability in universities could likely be addressed through a greater awareness and understanding of quality assurance processes and their relation to sustainable development. And we believe that embedding sustainable development in higher education quality systems and engaging more deeply with quality assurance stakeholders could actually support a faster and deeper involvement of universities with the sustainable development agenda.
This brings us to a research question, which is to which extent do quality assurance frameworks of higher education institutions support transformative learning for sustainable development? A first important thing, if we look to this research question, is what quality assurance frameworks would we like to include in our analysis? Because there exist different quality assurance frameworks at different levels. Some of them are compulsory, while others are voluntary to use and more a choice of the institution itself. Furthermore, you have quality assurance frameworks at different levels. For example, you have quality assurance frameworks at the international level, like the ESG guidelines, but also quality assurance frameworks at the national level, and even quality assurance frameworks or labels that are specific for a certain discipline and which you can use to evaluate the quality within your discipline. Examples of these are, for example, the ACSB guidelines and the EQUIS guidelines. Now, in our research, we choose to limit the quality assurance frameworks which we analyzed to the ones used in the European higher education area. Why did we choose to limit our research to this region? First of all, our assumption was that because one of the four principles of quality assurance in the European higher education area is taking into account the needs and expectations of society, that sustainable development or transformative learning for sustainable development would be in. Another reason we choose to focus on the national quality assurance frameworks used in European higher education area and the ESG guidelines, that is because the European higher education area claims to be a leader in commitment to pursuing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The map on this slide shows the different countries of the European higher education area. We were able to get the national quality assurance frameworks from the countries colored in green on the map. The countries colored in blue on the map, there the quality assurance frameworks are not available in English and therefore excluded from our analysis. Data from the countries in red are missing. From the countries colored in yellow, we didn't receive the full quality assurance frameworks, but we were able to collect summaries of the quality assurance frameworks and other policy documents, which made it able to analyze these or to uptake these countries as well in our analysis. And then you have the countries colored in purple, like Andorra, Liechtenstein, and Luxembourg. These countries don't have their own quality assurance frameworks at the national level. But for example, in Andorra, they use the ESG guidelines directly. And in Luxembourg and Liechtenstein, higher education institutions are assessed by foreign ECA registered agencies. Now, how was this research conducted? First, the literature study was done to gain deeper insight in the topic. Afterwards, quality assurance frameworks were collected. First, we searched for the quality assurance frameworks online on the websites of the different quality assurance agencies. Next, we requested by email the quality assurance frameworks of which we didn't find them online. However, this was not that easy as we have to send several reminder emails and we also did some phone calls to collect the missing data. And next to data, or yeah, the quality assurance frameworks were imported in NVivo software. First, we did a word frequency analysis. Um, this was done to get a general overview of which words were used in the different frameworks, but it was good to have a broad overview, but not to have like a deep insight. Therefore, in the next step, we conducted a blended coding approach to gain deeper insight. We used deductive and inductive coding to analyze the different quality assurance frameworks. And in the last step, we compared the different results from the different countries, and we also analyzed other quality assurance documents and policy documents we found during our literature review. First, I'm going to present the results of the word frequency analysis. In the query of the word frequency analysis, we decided to include only words of 5 letters or more and stemmed variants. Why only words of 5 letters or more? Words less than 5 letters were excluded to avoid meaningless prepositions, articles, or pronouns. And with stemmed variants, we mean, for example, sustainable and sustainability are counted together. Assuming that important and significant words would be used more frequently, this word frequency analysis aimed to check if words relating to sustainable development or transformative learning were used frequently in the quality assurance frameworks. The results of such a word frequency analysis are mostly presented by a word cloud. On this slide, you see, for example, the word cloud of the ESG guidelines. And in general, we see that in word clouds of the national quality assurance frameworks, at least one word is mentioned related to sustainable development or to transformative learning. Um, there are some exceptions, for example, Austria, Bulgaria, and Czech Republic, Cyprus, and the Netherlands. In none of these word clouds of these countries, a single word with a link to sustainable development or transformative learning was mentioned. Mostly the words in the word cloud refer to sustainable development and less often to transformative learning. And we found that the word stakeholders is one of the most popular words in the different word clouds. Now, caution is, however, necessary as a word without context has the risk of losing meaning. This analysis is only based on words and the context of the words is lost. Therefore, it provides a good indication, but it's not a sufficient proof. Furthermore, we also investigate where and how many times the word sustainable development was literally mentioned in the different quality assurance frameworks. It was surprisingly not mentioned literally in the ESG guidelines, but the word sustainable development was literally mentioned at least one time in the quality assurance frameworks used in Estonia, Romania, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United Kingdom. The word sustainable and or sustainability is literally mentioned in the frameworks used in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia, Germany, Malta, and Spain. However, later in the research, we saw that the interpretation or the context was often wrong. For example, the word sustainable or sustainability was used to talk about sustainable use of financial resources or the sustainability of the academic staff rather than in the context or in comparison with the definition of sustainable development itself. We did the same for the word transformative learning and transformation. Transformative learning was only literally mentioned in the quality assurance framework used in the United Kingdom. The word transform was mentioned literally in the frameworks used in Slovenia and Sweden, although also here in further analysis we saw again that the context wherein the word transform was used was wrong. It had nothing to do with the definition or the concept of transformative learning. Now, the word frequency analysis and the workloads only gave a general overview, but to gain more insight and also know about the context, we used a blended coding approach to analyze the different quality assurance frameworks in more depth. And there we saw that the ESG guidelines pay attention to responsiveness regarding stakeholders by stating, for example, in their framework that quality assurance takes into account the needs and expectations of students, all other stakeholders, and society. The link to sustainability or sustainable development is in this sense somehow implicit, although sustainability as an orientation for stakeholder processes is not explicitly addressed. Elements of transformative learning are partially present in the ESG guidelines. For example, things like student centered learning, experiential learning, active learning are mentioned in the ESG guidelines, but other elements related to transformative learning are not explicitly addressed. If we look to the results of the analysis of the national quality assurance frameworks, we see that only high and explicit support for transformative learning for sustainable development is present in the quality assurance frameworks used in the United Kingdom, Scotland and Ireland included. In this country, a separate guidance about education for sustainable development is available for higher education providers. And in this additional document, sustainable development is mentioned, but also the approach of transformative learning. And it really supports educational staff to incorporate sustainability into curriculum and provide students of every discipline with the knowledge, understanding, and skills relevant to sustainable development. So there we see high and explicit support of both concepts. We could also find more implicit support for transformative for sustainable development in the quality assurance frameworks used in Estonia, Holy See, Romania, Sweden, Switzerland, and Ukraine. However, only sustainable development or sustainability is literally mentioned mostly. The approach of transformative learning is only present a little bit more implicit by stating that student-centered learning and active learning and so on is important, but not like the whole concept of transformative learning. Lastly, when reviewing other quality assurance documents and policy documents, we also found some best practices detected in countries like Andorra, Austria, France, and the Netherlands. But Ingrid will tell you more about these best practices.
Yes, so as Lisa mentioned, although the majority of quality assurance frameworks that we analyzed do not explicitly support transformative learning for sustainable development, we actually discovered interesting and forward looking initiatives which are challenging and innovating national quality systems. And this is the case, for example, of Andorra, which is a very small country between Spain and France, and where its quality assurance agency has been working for at least the past 5 years to define quality indicators that can support universities to embed sustainability using a whole school approach. And this has taken place in a very collaborative approach involving all types of higher education stakeholders, involving all the higher education community, including university teaching staff, university support staff, students, employers, sustainability experts, and international advisors who, for all these years, have been working together to try to understand how to implement sustainable development at the Andorran universities and to try to identify what indicators could work to embed sustainability within the institution. And just as Lisa mentioned, we also found good practices in Austria, France, and Netherlands. Practices which are innovating, especially in ways of assessing our universities that we encourage you to look at, and you can have the examples here in this slide. So, to our knowledge, our study is the first attempt to explore to what extent quality assurance frameworks support transformative learning for sustainable development in higher education. This is a really underexplored area that requires further attention if we really want to achieve the ambitious goals of the Agenda 2030 and the ESD for 20 program of UNESCO, which both include a call for transformative learning and quality. So we would like to end our presentation by highlighting three key messages or lessons learned that we think that can support future research and practice in this area. First, there is an urgent need to engage more meaningfully with quality assurance agencies and also with quality professionals if we want to influence quality systems. Um, if we look around, we will see that their voice has not been heard in any of the key international ESD forums and dialogues. Second, we believe that ESD and higher education networks and also groups play a very critical role in strengthening the links between quality and higher education, connecting professionals who have never talked together before, such as university professors, for example, and quality professionals, but also supporting good practices exchange in this area. And finally, through our research, we have realized about the potential of embedding transformative learning and sustainability in the European Quality Standards and Guidelines, the ESG, um, as this could cause a very positive ripple effect and accelerate the process of linking sustainability with quality concerns. So we will end our presentation here and we hope that you have enjoyed it. We also hope that you found it useful. Please do send us your questions and write any comments you have and we will try to respond as soon as we can. You can also contact us by email if you're interested in knowing more about this research, but also about our future projects. So many thanks again for listening and we look forward to hearing from you.